If you're having trouble with your barnyard friends, you got a thing for use. Been counting sheep, but you're not in bed. Here's what you gotta do. Get off the barn, stay off the farm. Go read a nursery rhyme. Don't ring 976-BAAA. That kind of love's a crime. Hey, dirty deeds done with sheep. Dirty deeds, little Bo Peep. Dirty deeds done with sheep. Dirty deeds and they're done with sheep. Dirty deeds and they're done with sheep.
So I wanted to go over something that I've talked about on a few different occasions, and that is diversity. A lot of people have been hearing this word and cringing, depending on its context, its usage, and more than likely what it means to most people. So let me get first to the point. Diversity is typically used in biology to differentiate the different kinds and species, to demonstrate the differences in our species, and it's definitely used for demographical information. It's a way of distinctly telling one group from another. Thus, diversity allows us to understand that we are a diverse species with multiple different, I could say backgrounds, but that doesn't quite make sense. Multiple different ecological and evolutionary developments that makes us distinctly different. For example, in physiology, you can tell the difference between somebody that came from Northern Europe and somebody that came from Asia or Africa without looking at their skin, but looking at the contents of their insides, I guess you could say, through a forensics analysis. Looking at the bone structure is another example where you could figure out where somebody's from based on their bone structure. Genetics has unlocked the ability to look at somebody's genome and discover where their genes came from all the way back about a couple thousand years. For example, here's me. As you can see, 1,000 years ago, I'm half Norse. I'm from the northern part of Europe, a quarter Irish and a quarter of whatever else that Europe was. So my suspicion would be that my ancestral Vikings decided to take on a few white slaves and have fun with them and take them back with them, because I'm half of the Norse ancestry according to my genetics. That would presuppose that most of my ancestry comes from there, meaning any mingling was probably either through conquest or through trade, or just somebody decided to migrate or something crazy. Most likely it's through slavery of some sort. But anyways, so enough of that. What diversity usually points to is a biological difference between people of the same species. It's a biological difference. What is attempted to happen in, say, the last roughly 50 years or so is to apply diversity to other things, saying that the diversity of thought is the one that people aspire to, because segregating and separating people based on your demographical information, by sex, by race, by location, by ethnicity, where you grew up, by nationality, if you will, those have been deemed ethically unacceptable. Notice that I did not say morally, but ethically unacceptable. We as a society have decided that segregation or separation of people by race or gender is not ethically acceptable. We have made laws to substantiate this. And a ethic and consensus in a large group or population, a society, as a culture, is a decision at a group level that we all agree upon that this is a wrong thing to do. However, what has happened lately is diversity has come back to the diversity of culture and the diversity of race and gender. They've gone straight back to the original meeting in biology to say that people from different experiences, as they put it, needs to be included in a conversation. Well, my background is organizational leadership and decision making. I study heavily in those particular areas. So let me offer a different perspective, if you will. If you were going to make a decision in a business, and say this is a $6 million decision, just to give a round figure, you're doing a $6 million project. And this project has multiple facets. It's going to require some civil planning. It's going to require some IT. It's going to require some HR or behavior change. It's going to require some buy-in from a vendor. You have to decide on which vendor is going to be good. It's going to require some, let's say, what's the word I'm looking for? It might require some outside influence or information from, say, a consortium of sorts. One of the more popular ones in the IT world would be like Gartner or Forrester, where they do analysis of different products and vendors and see which one's the best in the market. And you're going to need all this information. Now, there's two approaches to this, and I want you to consider both and tell me what makes more sense in a business situation, since most, if not all of us, live in a capitalist society and summarily must deal in business acumen of some sort to function within the society. And since this is the best way that society thrives, naturally, this would be the most ethical way to approach this. So let's take this. Let's take the social justice aspect first. We need to make a decision, and we only need, say, 3 to 5 people within this decision-making team. Now, keep in mind that 3 and 5 people is about the average, statistically most successful size team. It's 3 to 5 people, excluding the leadership of that team. It's all strictly the people that are actually going to be doing the work or making the decisions and recommendations to leadership. Who do you put in that group? Well, if we were to follow the social justice mantra with inclusion and diversity, I have that backwards. Diversity and inclusion. We must necessarily include a gay person, a black person, another ethnic minority, Latinx or whatever the hell. Maybe a white person, but not a white male. It must be a white female. And it makes sure that there's at least one more female in there. Because you can't have 4 people, that's an even decision. Because if 2 people decide one way and 2 people decide the other, there's no tiebreaker to allow the team to move forward. You have to convince somebody. So let's say it's 5 people, 3 of them are female. Does that tell you anything about their expertise, about their ability to make this decision, about their ability to properly assess the situation and spend $6 million of your money, because you're the one running the company? $6 million of your money, and you want a diverse team, and you got your diverse team. Can you make this decision? Would you entrust $6 million to a group of 5 people, 1 gay male, 1 black, 1 white woman, 1 Latina, and then a 5th, trans person. Let's go with trans. Now that you have these 5 people in a room, do you know, without a doubt, that these 5 people and their background and experiences, which you only know about their demographical information, their diverse information, would you entrust them with $6 million to make a project go through and in turn return on your investment of $6 million threefold? Like, you're expecting $30 million out of it. Just to ballpark it up. This investment is supposed to have a return within 5 years of 30, if done properly. Would you give them $6 million? Well, if you're a social justice warrior, you might be like, yes, because their diverse opinions and experiences would give you the proper context and notes and whatever to make such decisions. In actuality, you know nothing of their expertise, so you know nothing of what's going to be decided. So let's go down the second route, the route of the evolutionary chain, the meritocracy, the capitalist society, and the one that takes diversity not by demographic information, but diversity by experience, expertise, and merit. The conscious diversity, as I like to call it. So instead of pulling in 5 random people, you know nothing of their sex. You don't know if they're male or female. You don't know anything about their ethnicity. You don't know anything about their race. You know nothing of their demographical information. The only information, you don't even know their names. Let's put it that way. To give reference to the atrocious resume studies that I've seen that pretty much just display bias in their decision making to try this study and think that it's a valid study. It was not, and horrible. I'll get into that in another video. But so let's take this. You know nothing about you don't know their names, you don't know their gender, you don't know their race, you don't know their sexual preference, as if that was a decision-making criteria. You know nothing about them individually, demographically. What you do know is all of them have a master's degree. One of them has a master's degree in IT project management. The other one has a master's degree in psychology and behavior change management and organizational leadership. Let's say it's an MBA, just for fun. One of them has a PM, project management, master's of project management. One of them has the social marketing, masters of social marketing. Let's throw that out there. I don't know if that really exists, but marketing, essentially. And the fifth one has the has only a bachelor's, and let's say it's a bachelor's of business admin, but they have about 10 years experience in 2 other companies that are in the same field as you, right? With all that information, would you entrust these 5 people with $6 million to return on investment for $30 million? Would you entrust these 5 people to make the decisions necessary for this project to be successful, given that background information? Now, if you were thinking like I think, which is probably not what you think, you would say that yes, I would trust these people with $6 million. They're all my employees. They have necessary information, education, experience, and background that would necessarily let me know that these people, this group, would be able to be successful in the decision making that we're putting forth. So out of these 2 given scenarios, one is the demographics of race, gender, sexuality, whatever. The other side is the knowledge of their background, their education, their expertise, their knowledge of the field, and so on and so forth. We can see that the diversity in an organization, diversity and inclusion, should have nothing to do about race, gender, and whatnot. And this is precisely why Google's being sued by James Damore. This is precisely why Google is a failing company and YouTube can't make any money because of its ideological positions. It's precisely why you see these companies being laughed at by other companies. But it's also the same kind of bullshit that you see in every company. Any company that's a fairly large size has a diversity and inclusion group, if you will. Akin to an HR group where they focus on trying to get diverse voices and hire minorities and all this fun stuff. When actuality, what they should be looking at is the best qualified candidates, regardless of their race, gender, or otherwise. You want the best and most talented people, regardless if they're male or female, regardless if they're black or white or purple or gray or brown or whatever, regardless if they like men or if they like women, which actually would be absolutely none of any business's business. As ironic as that is. No business should be in the business of knowing what you do in your spare time. None of your goddamn business. You're there to do a job, not sleep with people on the job. Which, sexual preference, being gay or straight or bi or whatever, is precisely that. It's what you do in the bedroom has no applicable reason to exist in a decision making and hiring or whatnot. None whatsoever. What bearing would that have on a $6 million decision? It wouldn't. It would have no bearing on that decision. So, in those two cases, speaking of diversity, I had a conversation with a research head of diversity inclusion at my university. I fully expected it to go very, very social justice-y, given the blog posts and other special things that I saw going on in the research hub, the research group. It hasn't put out any research that I've seen thus far, except for one or two papers where I read one where it went over male and female behavior types, including androgynous behavior types, to determine what behavior types were most successful. And akin to what Jordan Peterson found is that the more desirable traits for males, the combativeness, the competitiveness, that type of thing, were highly successful. However, being more approachable by their employees, people found that the more female or androgynous behavior types were more appealing to making more cohesive and successful team framework. So to make a stronger cultural organization, some of the female behaviors were also desirable. Much to the credit of Kathy, in asking that question, the answer would be yes, that it is slightly desirable, not for success of the business, but for cohesion and attrition of the business, to make a cohesive business unit where all people just get along and they work together, making long-lasting employees that just don't want to quit because they enjoy being there, that type of thing. Female behaviors and androgynous behaviors are more akin to making that a reality. But anyways, so I had this conversation, and the reason why I wanted to bring up diversity is because we hit the oh so fun topic of being colorblind, and she said she absolutely hated that phrase. And I thought that was quite interesting, because if you're into diversity and inclusion, then you should love that phrase, in my opinion. Especially when you're applying it to leadership, to psychology, or any organizational behavior. The idea and thought process behind being colorblind is a desirable trait because it negates everything that would separate or segregate you away from the opportunity, or making a bad business decision based on those characteristics that have no bearing whatsoever to your capability of doing the job, and more toward looking at the person's character, their capabilities, and their intelligence, and their experience and background, specifically to handle the position or job that you're giving them. And we found out that we actually agreed upon this decision, even though the phrase itself annoyed her, and it really came down to this. And I think this is where I saw a clip from BuzzFeed. They did the same goddamn thing, where you say, I'm colorblind. People go, oh, no, you see color. Don't lie. You can tell I'm black. You can tell I'm Latin. You can tell I'm white. You're so full of shit. You can see it. It's right in front of you. How dare you belittle my identity, as they would put it. In actuality, when we were discussing the differences between the literal and the metaphorical interpretation of this term. So when you say you're colorblind, they think it's literal, meaning that, yeah, I don't see your skin tone. It doesn't compute to me. It doesn't make sense. When anybody actually says it from the philosophical standpoint, much like anybody that actually says it means, is to say that we see your race and we don't care. So that might be a problem in itself when you approach the people that care about their race. In fact, some people like Joy Reid, for example, would care that I don't care that she's black. I don't. I care about her merits. I don't care that Oprah seems to think that African American is a good identifier for an individual when they're not from Africa, they don't have dual citizenship, and they're not a African national person. coming to America to be an American. Either you're an American or you're not. You're born here or you're not. To be an American is to designate your point of birth and origin, not necessarily where your ancestry comes from. It's irrelevant to the conversation. So, in conclusion, the colorblind aspect really is the philosophy to say that, yeah, I see that you're black and I really don't give a shit. I don't care. Your race means nothing to me. Neither does being white. Neither does being brown or tan. It might in relationships. It might in whether I find you attractive or not. Same with the sex. I'm only attracted to women. I'm straight as can be. But that has no determination. And that's through training. It's a concerted effort not to care. Don't get me wrong. It's not something that everybody can do. There's a lot of people that are quite the opposite. They care too much, in fact. When you hear somebody chant over at one of the rallies that actually Sargon sat and watched when he was at Berkeley, where I love the color of my skin, and they're singing that stupid ass song, I Love Being Black. In that case, they care too much about their skin. So when you say, I don't care what you look like and I don't care what skin you are, they take personal offense because it's a core value of theirs. They think that their skin is somehow important and it will somehow give them an extra experience or something. I'm not sure what it will give them, to be honest, because in business acumen and organizational leadership, the only thing that really matters is your capabilities and your ability to maintain trust and a good relationship between the leader and the followers. Since there's typically only one leader and several followers, it's a one-to-many relationship. It's rarely a many-to-one, even though that's what a politician's supposed to be, and they kind of fail at that job. Anyway, tell me what you think about this. The diversity of biology, the demographical information versus the diversity of experience, knowledge, and expertise. In a business sense, in the way our society functions, which one makes more sense to use on a consistent basis to make good decisions, to make good relationships? Somebody's expertise, their ability not to get in trouble, things like that. What makes a good friend? Is it their race that makes them a good friend? Or is it their personality? When we make decisions upon those type of things, we often exclude the demographical information as well. I think the only thing where it applies even remotely in some sense is personal preference toward who you want to sleep with, really. That's it. So that's all I had for now. I hope you enjoyed this one. It's rare for me to go back to back and do a video after a video, but that's what I've resolved to do. And I hope you enjoyed this.
All right, what are you all looking at?